Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining myself and Alison today. I think we've got enough people in now, so I guess we can start. Yeah, why not? So what a great turnout. My name's Lucy, for anyone who's not too sure. I'm part of the senior sales team at Airship and Toggle. And just for anyone who's not aware, this is our third masterclass of the Airship Come Back Strong series, where we're just seeing a different partner share their expertise each week, all the way through to the summer. So also as part of the Come Back Strong campaign, we have made Airship CRM platform completely free of charge for all of hospitality. So all the way until you reopen in June. It's proving really positive so far. So if you're not already a customer, do get in touch, we can get you set up. So I'm lucky enough to be introducing Alison here for today's masterclass. And Alison is the founder of White Doe, which offers excellent insight and mentoring for the financial strategy in hospitality businesses. And this year, it's been a difficult one for many sectors, but I do think hospitality have been hard hit. And so, learning a little bit more about those bottom line profits, especially this week with everything going on budget-wise, I think is really important. So I'm really excited to have you on, Alison. And just so everyone knows, there is a Q&A section. So if you have any questions throughout the whole thing, just pop them in there. We can cover them throughout, or we can cover them at the end. So I'll stop waffling and hand over to you, Alison.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucy.
No.
Hi, everyone. As Lucy said, today's session is titled The Life Cycle of a Bill. So hopefully by the end of the session, is my thing going to work? What's happening? Remote control? There we go. There we go. Sorted. Hopefully by the end of the session, you'll understand the whole life cycle of a guest bill, right from sales down to profit, and therefore understand exactly how daily behaviors will have an impact on your bottom line. And finally, we will have a chat about the concept of break-even points and why hospitality businesses only really make money when they are mad-busy. So let's get started. Normally, I would jot all this down with you all as we go through, but as with everything else in the last 12 months, we've had to adapt. So welcome to Tasty Restaurant. Yes, this is why I'm an accountant and not a branding expert. So there's only one thing on Tasty Restaurant's menu, is the beer and burger combo. It's sold at £20 a pop, £6 for the burger, £14 for the burger and chips. If you live in the north, don't tell me about it. I don't want to know how cheap it is. I live in London and it's all very expensive. But anyway, so you add on £22.50 to a guest bill, so the total guest bill will be £22.50. So that's the amount of cash that will hit Tasty's bank account tomorrow when you sell one Tasty combo, and also the starting position of our journey. So I'm just going to take 30 seconds if you want to jot down in the comments where you think you'll end up at the end of it. So in terms of bottom line profit, and let's see who gets the closest when we get to the end, shall we? We got some comments coming in. No idea. Cool. Let's keep going. So from that £22.50, you will have the service charge that goes back to the team, £2.50. Tasty is an ethical restaurant, so 100% of that goes to our staff. So £20 left. That's exactly what you would see on the menu if there was one in Tasty Restaurant's site. And then we start on to the VAT. Normally VAT is 20% across the board if you eat in. I'm sure you may know that there is a reduced 5% rate at the moment, which reduces our VAT for food as well as any non-alcoholic drinks. But under normal circumstances, once you strip out the VAT, which goes back to the government, Tasty would be left with 1666. This is otherwise known as net sales in the accounting world. It's what most operators will talk about when they talk about sales. That's what they mean, the net sales figure after VAT, as opposed to the gross sales figure, which is what you see on a menu. So we've now dealt with the government. So let's go to the cost of the beer and the burger. Taken some averages here, so the more knowledgeable amongst you don't tell me off for telling me that a beer actually only costs £1 instead of £1.25. So we've gone for £1.25 for the cost of a burger, £3.50, sorry, say that again, £1.25 for the cost of the beer and £3.50 for the cost of the chips. This is otherwise known as cost of sales. Operators will talk a lot about GPs and GP percentages. All that is your net sales take away your cost of sales, sometimes shown as a percentage. GPs are pretty useful in identifying how profitable your menu is within reason, so people would actually want to still pay for that. The higher, the better. So let's check in quickly here. From our original £22.50 that hit Tasty's bank account, we are now down to £11.91. So that's half of it gone before we even think about staff costs or anything else like rent, heating, IT, etc. On the subject of staff costs, let's move right on to that. The government steps in again here. So the pay that is advertised or agreed with a team is not actually the cost to the business. So say the burger takes half an hour at minimum wage at £8.72 to serve. Think about service cycle management time, prep, clean down, etc. The team will receive £4.36. And then after that, taxes get deducted, and that's what hits the team's bank account at the end of the day. What Tasty is actually paying, though, is actually the £4.36. On top of that, you add employers' national insurance, pension contributions, and also holiday pay for when the team is on holiday, training, etc. I'd say as a rule of thumb, 15% is quite a good guide in terms of the difference between the pay that the team would receive versus the cost to the business. So a £4.36 pay would actually equate to £5.01 in terms of half an hour of staff costs from a labour cost perspective to the business, which takes us quite neatly down to a nice and even £6.90. That's actually just 30% of the original £22.50. So we've talked about the cost of the beer, talked about the cost of the burger, talked about the labour costs. These are actually the biggest variable costs within a restaurant business. These are also the things that everyone has the most control over. Once you've taken that into account, then most of your costs are gone, but there are still some nitty-gritty bits to go through. Think napkins, tills, IT costs, credit card fees, etc. So let's move on to those bits now. All the remaining costs are generally grouped into 4 different buckets: operating costs, promotional costs, administrative costs, and premises costs. I'm going to split these into fixed and variable. All will be revealed shortly, but bear with me. So by variable, I mean these costs will change depending on the level of sales. So let's take each of these in turn and chat through them. So let's start with operating costs. It does what it says on the tin. It encompasses everything that's to do with keeping the business going. So this is your napkins, your cleaning products, the actual cleaning crew, your heating, your lighting, the music, any repairs you need to make, the linen, the crockery that you place it with, any software costs, the tills, all of those things. So generally you would say 2% of your sales relates to variable operating costs. So those would be things like your napkins and things that will change depending on your level of sales, and the remainder of it will be fixed. And depending on the actual operations is probably overall about 7 to 8% of your sales. So we've taken, for the purposes of Tasty combo, 35p for variable, 85p for fixed, totaling £1.20. So next up is promotional costs. This encompasses all things marketing. So airship, toggle, software costs, etc. would probably sit within here, as well as any delivery commissions, any agencies, any events costs. Again, this will vary hugely, but I've taken a pretty average 6% of sales as your total promotional costs at £1. Most of these are fixed. So if you think about it, your Google Ads costs may be variable in terms of how much people are clicking on those ads, but what they don't change is it doesn't change based on the level of sales you are making. So we've gone for 25p in terms of variable promotional costs. Most of that will be to do with commissions, and 75p in terms of the remaining promotional costs. I know this is loads of information. Bear with me, all will become clear, I promise. So next up, administrative costs. This is a pretty simple one. Most of this is to do with your credit card fees, which makes up the majority of your costs. These are, of course, incredibly variable, largely entirely based on your sales figure. The remainder of it, the 10p that I've allocated to it, is the boring stuff, boring professional fees, payroll, accounting, any legal fees, professional fees, that kind of thing. And finally, we get to premises costs. This is what we all know: the rent, the rates, the licenses, the insurance. It's the ultimate fixed cost, the thing that you get locked into for years on end. So since we're doing London sales prices, we'll do London rent as well. So we'll add £2.50 on top of into our bill for our premises costs. As many of you will know, in the recent budget, the business rates holiday was extended. Rates can make up about 50% of your rent, or sorry, rates can be up to about 50% of your rent. So the holiday has a huge impact on finances. Of this £2.50, 80p of it will be to do with the rates bill. So we'll come on to why that makes a big difference on a restaurant's profitability in due course. So we've done the hard bit, we've done the long-winded, boring bit. So let's check in on our bill and see where we're at. So we started off with £22.50 with the bill to pay. We took off the service charge, which goes back to the team, the VAT, as well as the cost of sales. And then we took away the labour costs as well, and we ended up with £6.90. Now we're taking away all the other bits and pieces. So your operating costs, your promotional costs, your admin costs, and your premises costs. And what remains is £1.80. That's less than the service charge that originally went out. I always find that fascinating. I don't know about any of you, but what I've actually also sneakily done here is explain an entire standard P&L. So accountants will always talk about P&L, but what it is, it's a representation of how profitable you are. So let's have a look here and match it all up. You start with your gross sales, which is what appears on your menu. Take the VAT, you end up with net sales, which is what everyone talks about in terms of their sales figures. You've got cost of sales. Taking net sales from cost of sales becomes gross profit. You turn that into a percentage quite often to give you GP percentage figure, and that's a good key performance indicator in terms of how well your menu is likely to perform. Take away labour costs, operating costs, promotional costs, etc., etc. You get down to your £1.80, which is what we have left from the bill. Normally on the P&L, it'll show up as EBITDA. This is an accountant's favorite jargon phase, but what it means is, what it stands for is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. There's a reason why you shorten it all into EBITDA, but it's just a really easy, good indicator of what your profit is before you consider things that are outside of your control and how profitable your business is. So Are there any questions that we need to take so far, Lucy, or are we good to carry on?
We are good to carry on, although John was very close. He guessed £1.20.
Ooh.
Which, you know, is even lower.
That's even lower. That's a bit pessimistic. Maybe I was a bit optimistic somewhere, but very good. Well done.
Yeah, that was the closest guess. So yeah, we can carry on.
Nice work. Right, let's carry on. So I said we're going to talk about kind of the impact of daily behaviors on your bottom line profit. So I've just jotted down a couple of different examples here and have a look at what impact it really has on your profitability. So the first one is the food VAT reduction from 20% to 5%. The benefit to the bottom line is £1.67, which basically doubles your profit from what you're originally going to get. So I think that's obvious to everyone why it's such a big deal that the 5% rate continues. Thank you, Rishi Sunak. A slightly more depressing one is having to recook a burger if a guest complains or service takes too long and you have to do it again. That's a loss of £3.50 because you're spending that cost of sales all over again. So you're going from a profit of £1.80 all the way back to a loss. That's just for having to recook a burger. And then a 5-minute saving in your labor has a positive impact of 84p. So that's finding an efficiency somewhere, being double quick at getting the PDQ machine, for example, and that's another 50% on top of your profit that you weren't previously expecting. Here comes a old favorite, using a mop instead of reams of blue roll. It's a firm favorite of mine. Even at 10p, that gives a 5% improvement on your profits. It's crazy. But business rates holiday, I said before, 80p, that's another 50%. It's surprising how big a difference these little things can make. I was talking to Chris and Kieran at EXP 101 yesterday, and they're telling me about a story of a blue roll measuring chart of the piece of blue roll they're supposed to have in order to clean their for cleaning tables at a place they used to work at. So now we know why. So I mentioned the concept of break even, and the reason this is because not all bills are created equal. So a couple of slides ago, I divided everything up between fixed and variable costs. So now we come to explain why it all matters. Let me paint you a picture. You sell a tasty combo, the beer, the burger, you get that money in, immediately you pay out everything that is variable costs associated with selling that burger. So the service charge goes out, the VAT goes out, the cost of the beer, the burger goes out, the labor cost goes out, all of your variable operating, promotional and admin costs goes out. And what you're actually left with is £6.01. Cool. So you think, oh, maybe I can keep that. No, because we forgot about our fixed costs. So think about the size of piggy bank as the size of your fixed costs. So every time you sell a tasty combo, you're putting £6.01 into your £3,000 piggy bank. Until you fill that piggy bank up, you can't keep any of the money, i.e. your profits. So essentially, your break-even point is the number of tasty combos you need to sell in order to fill up that piggy bank, and therefore for you to start making money. So in this scenario, I've said fixed costs are £3,000 a week. So if cash after your variable cost is £6.01, you need to sell 500 beer and burger combos in order to break even. So that's net sales of £8,000. The reason why you normally talk about break even in terms of sales is because most restaurants don't run like Tasty Restaurant and only sell one thing. They obviously sell a wide variety of items, so sales is a much better target compared to the number of combos, but the concept doesn't change. And just to illustrate exactly how much the VAT and the business rates reduction has an impact on a business's break-even point and the profitability. That reduction means that your cash after variable costs goes up from £6.01 to £7.67. And the fixed cost reduction, because of rates, goes from £3,000 to £2,500. And what it does to your break-even point is that from 500 beer and burger combos that need to be sold previously to break even, it's now at 325. That's almost a third reduced from what you're at previously. So with social distancing rules, government restrictions, outside only dining, etc., it is so important that that break-even point is low enough to enable businesses to continue to operate while still making money. So I've just done a little graph because I like pretty graphs, but all this is trying to tell you is exactly the reason why businesses are only incredibly profitable when they are very busy. So if you have to sell 500 combos in order to break even, selling 1,000 combos, it's only between selling 500 and 1,000 combos that you're actually making money. So if your restaurant isn't very busy, you're probably selling around the 500, 600 combo mark, which means you're actually only making very little money, £1,000 a week, whatever it might be. If you sell the next 100 combos you sell, you get another £600. So by increasing your sales past your break-even point, you're actually improving your profits exponentially. The other thing that the eagle-eyed amongst you might have spotted is that the higher your variable costs and the lower your fixed costs, the more quickly you're likely to be able to get to your break-even point. So that's why turnover rents are such a good idea, because it flexes your huge fixed costs of premises costs with the level of sales. That's the bulk of what we are going to talk about. So just to sum up, the bottom line: the lower your fixed costs, as I just said, the easier it will be to make on lower sales. The margins are slim, though not quite as slim as John thought they were, which means everyday operational behaviours will have a really big impact on your overall profits. Break-even point is the key, because no profits get made until that point. Keep thinking about that fixed cost piggy bank and keep filling it up until it's full. Nothing else gets, you can't take any money out of it. And finally, you can apply the principles of break-even to your own business to check, one, whether or not it makes sense to open under government restrictions. If, for example, under government restrictions, there's no feasible way for you to hit your break-even point, then you need to think really carefully about whether or not you should open. It's also useful on a week-to-week basis in terms of targets that you can set your team, whether or not, you know, the tasty combo idea is a very simplistic one, but it might just be, okay, for every 500, you know, maybe every 50 mains you sell, you need to also sell 30 sides, for example, to ensure that you reach that break-even point and you're profitable. So before I hand back over to Lucy, I'll just leave you with a little quote and one of my favorite sayings: sales is for vanity, profit is for sanity. Thanks, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you. Amazing. That was really insightful, actually. Thank you for going through all that. And actually, it's made me excited now for everywhere to reopen, so I can get beer and burger.
I'm going to have to get one tonight, I think, after talking about it for so long.
So we have got a few questions, but I'll just firstly mention that for anyone who doesn't know that's on the call, White Doe are one of our professionals, and our professionals, they are experts in, you know, a huge range of areas, from financial support to brand strategy to even interior designers, but they all have hospitality in mind. And at Airship, we actually regularly support a lot of our clients. So most recently, we've been paying the bill for some one-to-one time with any of our professionals. So for any existing airshippers and togglers, keep that in mind. If you want to have some one-to-one time with Alison, just get in touch with myself or Alison. But also, if anyone else wants to just chat a bit more about Airship, you can email me on Lucy, which is LUCI, just because I'm strange like that, at airship.co.uk. But let me go through some of these questions with you, Alison. So, how do you use break-even theory to decide whether to open your business during government restrictions?
So basically what you want to be able to do is chip at your fixed costs whilst you are opening under government restrictions. The goal is to say that you are losing less money or making money, but losing less money by being open than by staying shut. So if you think about your fixed costs as a cost that you have no matter what, so long as you can make a profit via your variable costs, then you'll be using that money to put into your piggy bank, as it were. So you're filling your piggy bank halfway up, for example. So the loss that you're making is essentially only half of the piggy bank rather than the whole of your piggy bank. And that's how you can use the break-even point to figure out whether or not you should open whilst you're under government restrictions.
Perfect. Okay, I like the piggy bank analogy. Well, it's not really an analogy, is it? It's true. But okay, brilliant. And another question: any advice on reducing fixed costs, therefore improving the break-even point? Which is a good one.
Yeah. So one is to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. The trend that I think things are going after this pandemic is going to be for rent to largely be linked to turnover anyways, which will be a very good way of improving your fixed variable split. But also it's just looking at every nook and cranny. The number of people, when was the last time anyone looked at their direct debits, for example, whether or not it's in your personal or your professional life? There's always something lurking in there, maybe a system that you've long since stopped using that you're still paying for. Maybe your operations have changed and therefore your needs are different. So it's about digging into the detail. It's about finding every nook and cranny, but just know what you're paying for. That's the biggest thing, I would say.
Perfect. I think I can take that on for personal purposes as well. Excellent. There is one more question here. So, linking VAT reduction and business rates to the budget yesterday, what should businesses be doing now to protect their position?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually. So obviously, both of those things have a positive impact on your business. The first thing to do, I'd say, is kind of going back to whether or not you should reopen, is do those sums again. If you think you weren't going to open until May or even June, for example, do those sums again just to check whether or not by having these concessions, it makes sense for you to open slightly earlier and make that bit of money and start filling up that piggy bank. That's one thing. And two, I think it's a useful time, as we have 6 weeks before we go from now until the first lot of reopening, as it were, it's time to get all your ducks in a row, spend this time understanding your financial position with all of these concessions in place. No doubt most businesses will have lots of deferred debt, whether that's VAT or PAYE or even rent, etc. Understand how much you need to be paying back at each point, and then start building up some targets for yourself and for your team in order to know that you're going to be able to pay for everything as things fall due.
Perfect. We have actually just got another question that's come in for you. So what would you say to a customer that asks for the VAT reduction on their bill, which is controversial?
Oh, that is controversial. I think it's tough, isn't it? Because obviously everyone knows about it. I simply explain the fact that, our businesses have all been shut for the last 12 months by and large, and the VAT reduction is it's a method in which the government is actually providing support in the same way they've done in terms of furlough, in terms of business rates holiday. It's a means to an end. I think that's what I would say. You know, the VAT reduction that's not the real thing. The real thing is to use this as a mechanism to support the hospitality industry and help them be able to continue making enough money to stay afloat whilst government restrictions are in place.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's very fair. Well, that's all of the questions. Oh wait, sorry, we have one more here, which I've forgotten here. Sorry. Final one. So unless anyone wants to send any more in, we've got the time. So any KPIs businesses should look out for in the recovery period to protect their break-even and profit positions, which is a good question.
So the one thing that I wouldn't look at is compare yourself to last year or the year before when you were trading normally. You know, I think it's important to be kind to yourself over the recovery period. So look at things that are universal regardless of how busy you are. So a GP percentage, which we spoke about during the slides, is a really useful one. Have a look at your spend per head to see how it's going. And also I think a really, really key metric as you're just recovering and as you're coming out of the government restrictions is to make sure that you are right to stay open. So you are putting money into that piggy bank rather than losing more money than you would otherwise be by staying open. It's really, I understand the temptation to open as soon as possible because you can and because you want to be doing something and you want to get back to your guests, but to protect your financial stability and your profits for the future, it's important to keep your eyes wide open and make sure to keep filling up that piggy bank.
Excellent, lovely. Thank you so much, Alison. That was really good. I think that's all the questions now. So, but for everyone on the webinar, you can contact us. We will be sending out an email to everyone who's attended and everyone who's registered. So there'll be Alison's contact details and also our contact details as well. So, and I do believe you've got a newsletter you're starting as well. So there'll be the invitation in there for that.
Yes, I'm starting a newsletter and kicking it all off with a bit of a roadmap back to reopening. So week by week, what you should be doing to safeguard your financial position from here on out.
Excellent. Well, everyone should get on that. Lovely. Well, thanks everyone for joining and have a lovely day.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.